Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church on Zoom. My name is Joel Kilstoer, and I am your worship associate today. Beth Syverson, our Director of Music Ministries, is out on sabbatical. Karen Magoon-Pearson is our Director of Religious Education. Our minister, Reverend Sean Wilshire, is not leading the service today, but she has a special message for you.
Hello, Roomers and Zoomers. So I'm away this week, but my spirit is with you. For those of you who are new to the church, maybe you're just checking us out or curious about Unitarian Universalism, welcome. Glad you're here. You are in for a treat. This is a wonderful, friendly, fabulous, just all-around spectacular community. I hope you can get to know them because it can be kind of tough to get to know a new community. But here's the thing, just hang in there, join in one of the activities, and before long, you'll get to know people, and then this becomes your church. Well, today we've planned a wonderful service for you, just blending music and word to bring together a helpful and hope-filled message. We hope it will feed your soul. So without further ado, let's go.
We would like to recognize the many volunteers that have helped put the service together today. In addition, this morning we are delighted to have K.C. Mary Pandell. K.C. Mary Pandell hails from a spiritual yet non-religious background and found Unitarian Universalism by way of theater, becoming a member at UUC Fullerton in 2017. She has formerly served as worship chair and on their board of trustees. A lifelong actor, she has her bachelor's degree in theater performance from Chapman University and earned her first unit of clinical pastoral education from Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles. She is currently pursuing a Master's of Divinity from Meadville Lombard Theological School as a St. Lawrence grant recipient and will serve Tapestry Unitarian Universalist Church as a minister through the 2023 church year. Her plan is to become a parish minister for the UU community. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on a Hachiman and Tongva land. And I would like to invite you to open the chat box and say hello to everyone this morning. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together, not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is simply a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regards to the traits that sometimes divide people. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. After the service, we will be placing everyone who remains in Zoom breakout rooms for 20 minutes of coffee and conversation. Unfortunately, you have to bring your own coffee this week. Everyone is welcome to join in, and it's a great way to get to know people in the congregation. Our worship begins with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalist tradition. And as we light it, we say our unison affirmation. If you have a chalice or candle at home, we can light them together. Please join me now as we begin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. This we affirm together. Please join in singing our opening song.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our call to worship this morning is Community Means Strength by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place that we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned, a place that we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us, eyes will light up as we enter, voices will celebrate with us when we come into our own power. Community means strength. Strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done, arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. And our musical affirmation this morning was composed by Bongani Magatsiana, a renowned South African music director, composer, and theatrical producer who, with others from Village Harmony, has been leading our choir rehearsals for the past 3 weeks via Zoom. This song, Imbalela, is one of his compositions and is about the impact of environmental problems such as drought and famine, and praying to the ancestors for strength.
Imbale
When we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love in romance that makes us want to be better people, the love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs, the love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them, the love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love. Love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were central to the practice, our new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, then it could have a massive impact. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. We would see that there is no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere there is a complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, and more empathetic. Each of us, by our work here, contributes to a movement of love. May love hold us and heal those who need to be held and healed. May love guide more and more people every day. We light our chalice knowing that we are blessed to be in the business of growing love. May we work together to bless the world. And now for our time of meditation. If another strains to breathe, may our voices be the gentle rise and fall. If another chokes on tears, may our voices be an opening to hope. If another has forgotten, may our voices be a memory upwelling. If another is adrift, may our voices be the calling of community. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation or prayer.
Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return return again, return again, return to the home of your soul.
A few months ago, I was at a birthday celebration with my father. In attendance were he and I, his boss, and two friends he knows through work. It is important to note that all of us at this table were white. Now, vocational differences notwithstanding, each of them are in the construction business some way or other, which is vastly different from the ministry. The conversation we had was mostly pleasant. Lots of questions about my seminary work, what my plans are, do I want children? And I was surprised in a good way that we had almost reached the end of the meal without any sort of differing viewpoints. Some of theirs I found a little disagreeable, but nothing that was terribly so. And then, almost as if I jinxed it, one of them said, and I'm paraphrasing, well, it's like those protests last year. Protests, he spat, like it left a bad taste in his mouth. More like riots. He went on to rail against the Black Lives Matter protests in response to the murder of George Floyd. Notably, and perhaps unsurprisingly, he focused on the few people that took advantage of the chaos that nightfall can bring, but never once mentioned the multitudes of peaceful protest and marching across the nation and worldwide. It was never explicitly racist, but he used many of the talking points that are popular with the outlets that trend in that direction. Now, I would love to tell you that I said something. I would love to tell you that I stood up for the protesters and pushed back against these harmful narratives that tend to nurture racism, white supremacy, and the acceptance of police brutality. But I would be a great big liar if I told you that I did. See, I was stuck. There was a list of reasons that caused me to feel paralyzed. Notably so, I was the only voice that I could be absolutely positive was in vehement disagreement. Other factors, including a 20 to 30 year age gap, quite significant class differences, and even some power dynamics issues came into play. And I found myself horrified with my hands covering my mouth, completely silent. And that bothered me. We should all know by now that a lot of the difficult educational work that white people need to do around anti-racism is not the responsibility of Black, Indigenous, or people of color, who I will hereafter refer to as BIPOC. Indeed, the people that this work belongs to is within our own identifying communities. And this is twofold work, by the way. It is also not it's not the job of the white communities to police BIPOC people, but there's a little more on that later. We know this is the work we need to do, and I was too scared to do it. And that speaks a lot to my privilege as a white person. I was too uncomfortable, so I did nothing. I had the luxury to do exactly that, a luxury that is not afforded to minoritized communities. During the protests that followed the death of Mike Brown, does anyone know what the local Unitarian Universalist Church did? Did they march with the protesters? Did they speak out against the racism that played a foundational role in Mike's death? Did they condemn the police force's actions? No, they didn't do any of that. What they did do as a whole, much to their former minister's chagrin, was exactly the opposite. Oh, that's not our fight. That's none of our business. We don't need to get involved in that. And what an absolute failure of all the things we hold in esteem as Unitarian Universalists. It took them nearly 2 weeks to have any sort of meaningful response. All the while, There were young Black folks marching at night and organizing during the day. And those young people had a really interesting response to the Black churches in the area as well. In the book Ferguson and Faith, author Leah Gunning Francis interviewed a number of those young people and often heard the same thing regarding the churches. You weren't here before, and now you want to pretend to help? Local faith leaders had to pivot to find ways to support the local protesters without centering themselves in the conversation. And that is where you use must begin thinking. As a predominantly white community, we have privileges given to us that our BIPOC siblings do not have. We aren't seen as bossy or angry when we speak up. A symptom of white supremacy culture is that, by and large, the opinions and the voices of white people are favored over those of the minoritized communities that we live around. We'd rather hear someone who looks like us than listen to those with the actual experiences that we need to know about. But when can we use these privileges? Like the faith leaders in Ferguson, we need to be able to know when our words and work will do the greatest good and which words and work to use when. And how we help depends greatly on the spaces that we're in. We have got to read the room. Are we reflected in the faces that we see? Let's speak directly to those situations where our words can do the best work. When we're in the room with people who share our racial and cultural identities is our best opportunity to do that really hard work. This is the time to call our loved ones in and have those really tough conversations. Now, I'm curious, how many of you had the opportunities to do just that during our recent holiday season? And if you didn't do it, was it for some of the same reasons that I hadn't during that sushi lunch a few months ago? It's hard, right? To put ourselves in really uncomfortable situations, and the holidays feel like absolutely not the right time to have some of these conversations. At the very least, I challenge you to do as Reverend Kent, my internship supervisor at Tapestry in Lake Forest, had suggested to me. Make it known that their viewpoint is not the norm, even if that's just by disagreeing. We've got to meet people where they are. We won't change the world by calling out bad behavior. Shame and humiliation will only serve to create the opposite effect. But when we make the conscious choice on how we approach these sorts of conversations, it's not a bad idea to do so with some grace and patience. But we have to have these conversations whenever possible. Letting those teachable moments pass us by does a disservice to us as a community. When we're burnt out, when we're feeling like we can't possibly have one more conversation, can't hear about one more instance of police brutality, cannot bear one more display of white supremacy, I challenge you then to really dig into the work. Don't disengage. Don't tune it out. Make the effort to stay in it. Our BIPOC friends and family do not have the luxury of ignoring it, and we shouldn't either. I know this work is really uncomfortable. We run the risk of creating heated discussions at best and full-blown arguments at worst. Worries of fractured relationships may keep us silent. This is the least of the discomfort that we can work through. Discrimination of any kind is harmful, and it is up to those of us not in the line of fire to put out the flames. On the flip side, how we engage with those situations where our voices aren't needed is equally important. How do we know when our voice should be heard or not? I can hear some of you asking. And it's a pretty good rule of thumb to ask ourselves, does what I have to say take focus away from someone else? I asked a close friend when I was writing this sermon, what, as a Latino man, that he would want to see happen in these conversations. And after a period of thought, he said, I get that oppression is intersectional. But when I'm talking about my experiences with oppression, it's unhelpful when people who don't share those experiences bring in their own. It's like they aren't listening. It's like they're just waiting to talk. In other words, this isn't the oppression Olympics. One person's experience is not more or less valid than another, but sometimes I think in our very human desire to connect to others, we forget that the conversation isn't always about us. You can think of it in terms of the Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter argument. No one ever said that Black lives were the only ones that mattered, or that they mattered more than anybody else. But the conversation is focused on those lives because after the centuries of continued oppression, racism, and terrorism that Black communities have endured. So sometimes, even when we feel like we understand, we don't need to say anything. Indeed, that may be one of the best times to stop talking and listen, because that's where our side of this piece is, listening and learning in order to support. During the Ferguson demonstrations, and please note my deliberate use of the word demonstrations, not riots, as was possibly popularly used in the media. Some of the most effective support came from the surrounding community, and it wasn't by speaking out in place of the organizers. Some of the local congregations opened their doors to organizers so that they would have a space to meet and game plan for the next evening of demonstrations. Others made food and supplied drinks and places of respite. Others still stood outside police stations for hours, making phone call after phone call in order to secure legal representation for detainees, and worked tirelessly to get demonstrators released. Day in, day out, that nose to the grind practical support was what really made the most difference. And that sort of work is what helps facilitate trust between parties, and it doesn't make those who need to be heard feel like they're being spoken over. Finding those ways in which to be a part in supporting roles, making sure you're amplifying the voices that need to be heard, using your connections in ways that support the cause. These are the steps that we can use our privilege and influence for when our voices do not need to be centered. Maybe that's making phone calls or stumping door to door, cooking meals, making signs, participating in demonstrations, fundraising, or any number of things. Whatever it takes to make sure that the people who need to be heard have the support to be so. And that includes supporting them when they do things that we might not. In a 1966 interview with Mike Wallace, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said the following: "I think we've got to see that the riot is the language of the unheard." Coming from the mouth of one of the most preeminent leaders of the nonviolence movement, these are striking words. Words that show an understanding of why people were willing to engage in a type of protest that he did not agree with. He didn't condemn the actions, he accepted them for what they were and supported the right to protest as was seen fit. We have the same obligation. With the very Unitarian history of affluence and wealth, it is easy to sit back and say what we think people should be doing. No one will listen to you if you're too loud. What does violence fix? Well, that's not how I would do it if it were me. I'm here to tell you today, right now, that it does not matter how we think things should be done. The language of the unheard is a completely different language than that of the people who make the rules. It is our job to learn that language and support causes that move us to a place where the languages will one day, hopefully, share more commonality. Change can't happen if we don't learn, and learning begins with listening, even if we don't like or understand what we're hearing. Indeed, perhaps most when we're uncomfortable with what we're hearing. We have to consider that silence is violence. When we let a small stereotype of another slide in company that reflects us, that's violence. When we hear a not so microaggression towards someone and don't acknowledge it, that's violence. When we speak over and disregard those who are oppressed by the systems of oppression that have been woven into the fabric of our societies, that is violence. The heart of nonviolent protest is action. Complicity only serves to undermine the nature of our principles as Unitarian Universalists, and more pressingly, further deteriorates the trust between people when working together in community is paramount to anti-racism and anti-oppression work. Our privilege gives us a choice, and we are wise to choose the right side of history. One final note. I focus today on how we show up and do the right work to best bend toward racial justice. But it cannot be understated that this work must also too be done in other places where inequity and inequality still reign. This work transcends class and wealth, physical and mental ability, gender, sexual orientation. Where there is injustice of any kind, this work can and must be done. And the same principles hold true. We support, we speak up. We're gonna get it wrong sometimes, guys. And when we do, we apologize. We learn and we do better. May we choose to set aside our discomforts in order to work towards justice for all, everywhere. Amen.
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing one half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are giving to Stand Up for Kids. Information about this organization is on the screen in front of you. There are multiple ways in which you can support the church and this organization. You can mail a check, you can go through our website, or you can use an app called Venco Mobile. The choice is yours. All the information is on our website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that? This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this strength that I have, this strength that I have, this strength that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. World didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh yeah, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this love that I have. This love that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This love that I have. Oh yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this love that I have, yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Singing, the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this pride that I have, this pride that I have, this pride that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This pride that I have. I said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this pride that I have, yeah, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. All this peace that I have, oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give me my peace that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. Won't you sing about peace? This peace that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. All this joy that I have, this joy that I have, this joy that I have. Oh yeah, now the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have. I said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
Resistance Revival Chorus believes in the words written by the poet Toy Derricott when she wrote, "Joy is an act of resistance." We believe in the words of Mr. Harry Belafonte, who said, "When the movement is strong, the music is strong." We sing to revive the hearts of those who fight for social justice, and we sing together for freedom.
Please join in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share.
We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Now is the time when we honor the important events in our lives. You are invited, one and all, whether you are a member, friend, or visitor, to share participate in our weekly ritual of joys and sorrows. So let's take a deep breath. Perhaps you come here today holding something close to your heart, moments from the last days or hours that have struck you at your core. If you'd like to honor such a profound joy or sorrow, you are invited to do so. We do this by lighting candles, and you can light one at home if you have one. It's a wonderful way to honor what you hold in your heart. If you would like to share your joy or sorrow with the congregation, you can write it in the chat. Let's take a few moments in contemplation as we listen to some music, and then I will begin reading joys or sorrows out loud. Please forgive me if I miss a joy or sorrow. You can help me not to miss any by waiting to type comments to an expressed joy or sorrow until we are finished. Thank you. Linda has what I assume to be a joy. She says, "It is a great joy to have my dear friend Dee Dee here today. We have so much in common." Jacques Kilchoer says, Elizabeth Kilchoer was recently diagnosed with dangerously high blood pressure and cholesterol. She will see her doctor next week to get the proper medication. Ashley says, sorrows, family's diagnosis of COVID-19, but joys, purchasing a new home in Arizona. Amelia says, a sorrow and joy. My favorite meditation teacher, I'm sorry for how I'm going to pronounce his name, Thich Nhat Hanh, passed away yesterday, but I'm so grateful for all that I have learned. Patrick says, sorrow. One of the guys here died this week after he was taken from quarantine into the hospital. Barbara says, I'm grateful to be at my sister's after my surgery. I am especially grateful for all of the love I have received from this community. Let us hold in love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently, and yet when we gather together, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you are a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to write in the chat your name and where you are from so we can welcome you. If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for our youth and children, please contact us at hello@ocuc.org and we will help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we will help you get connected. After the benediction, we will have a short period where everyone can wave and say hello. After that, you can choose to be put into Zoom breakout groups for 20 minutes or so. We invite you to check in and get to know the people in your group, as well as welcome any visitors. As it says on the screen, all activities are on Zoom this week, but the choir rehearsal is being led by Village Harmony, and the entire congregation has been invited to join by the choir members. So don't miss that. We have a social hour Friday at 5:30 to 7:30. Stitch Wits on. Oh, okay. Stitch Wits Saturday from 10:30 to 12:30. And Women's Circle from 12 to 2 today. And our Pacific Western Regional Assembly is from Friday to Sunday, the 4th to the 6th.
As we end our time together today, may we remember that our call in this faith community must always bend towards justice. May we find strength and courage to do the really hard work. May we find grace and learning when we fall short. And above all, may we do it with love and kindness. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, and blessed be. Go now in peace. Let the light within you be a blessing to the world.
Please join Beth in singing Be Safe, Be Well.
Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me. Be safe, be well, you mean the world to me.
This service is over. Let our service continue.